Well, good morning, welcome back. Now you might remember this beautiful Electra Glide from back in the summer. We had it in for a couple of weeks to do rear wheel bearings, front and rear brake pads and an oil and filter change and nothing else at that time. Now it's come back in today for a rather special upgrade, something that's going to make it a lot easier to ride for its owner and it's actually going to cost practically nothing. Now if you know anything about these Harley Davidson touring models, much like many Harleys in the same frame group, they are quite modular in their design. They share many components across the range. And if you want to swap some of the features of one model with another, it can actually be quite easily achieved by swapping the effective components that make those changes. And that's when you can literally change and fine tune your Harley Davidson to exactly the ride you want. And again, as I just said, for virtually no money. Now what I'm talking about specifically in this bike today is the ride height. This bike sits at a certain ride height that at the moment is a little bit too high for its rider. He's a little bit balls of the feet, he'd like to be flat foot down, so he wants the back end lowered. Now Harley Davidson made a low version of this. This is the FLHTK, which is the standard ultra limited. They also made the FLHTK-L. Obviously the low version, and the difference between the two bikes was the seat and the rear shock absorbers. Now the seat he's very happy with. That's a custom seat which was cut down. He still wants it that little bit lower by fitting the rear shocks from the low version, and they're not very easy to find because the low version of this is quite rare, but there are the shocks from that low, those shorter shocks, on just about every street glide and every road glide out there, and there's a specific reason why. And that is because the road glide and street glide models are all about style. They're very much a style icon. They look like they're dragging their tail. All of them have got a low suspension on the back end, just a style thing that Harley have designed in. Whereas the big ultras are more about super touring comfort. They have a big tour pack that fits on the back. This one has to be detached at the moment, and they've got to have that tall suspension to absorb all the extra collapse they're going to get when you load them right up. So these really aren't the style icon that the street glides are. But all those street glides and all those road glides, they've got those low shocks on the back from standard, and they're so easy to get hold of. Right, let's just whip these pannier boxes off and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Now if you know your touring Harley Davidsons, from about 2016 right up to today, they have these wonky lopsided shock absorbers on the back, which kind of confuse most people to start with, but then looking a bit deeper into it, you can see what Harley are thinking of and what they want to try and kind of achieve, but at the same time, they're really not popular and so many people change them. I'll show you how they actually work. Now on the left hand side of the bike you get this giant great big monster of a shock with this hand wheel here that is your preload adjustment, and it goes in increments from 0 up to 20 increments, and you can tighten up the suspension by winding up the preload by just turning that wheel, and then all of the suspension practically is taken care of on the whole bike just by this one shock, because on the other side of the bike there's something a bit weird. You get this what can only be described as a mountain bike shock. It's absolutely minuscule, skinny little spring. It's only 2 inches in diameter. Doesn't look like it would hold the bike up at all. And actually, from proof that several people have shown online of cutting one of these open, there's no oil in there either. There's no damping on that shock whatsoever. It's just a spring, presumably to balance this side of the swing arm to stop it flexing. But that doesn't really do much towards what the other one does. All of the work is done by the left-hand shock. And even at minimum preload, it is so oversprung, it's too hard for most people on street glides and road glides, but not necessarily so on big ultras, because at 50 kilos heavier, these things are nearly 400 kilos dry, they actually just about work. And if we initially look at them side by side, this is the shock of my street glide special, and that's the shock on the ultra. Almost identical to look at. And the differences are, on the street glide shock, you can clearly see on the label here, it says low. But on the ultra shock, you can see clearly that says standard or STD. Same on the other side, street glide shock says low, ultra shock says standard. So clearly the factory suspension from a street glide special is lower than the factory suspension on Electra Glide Ultra. All the fittings, top and bottom, will be exactly the same, so they'll physically fit on and should give me the back end ride height of a street glide special. Shall we see? Now, as we're going to be lowering the suspension of the bike, it's good to get a baseline and find out what the ride height is at the moment, and then we can measure it at the end and compare by how much we've lowered it. So we'll start, just take the jack out completely and put the full weight of the bike on the wheels, let it settle, and then measure center to center on the shock bolts. Right, centre to centre, we are 325 mil. That side, and should obviously be exactly the same, 325 mil. Yep. And if we put the tops exactly together and then we take a look at the bottom close up, you'll see just how much of a difference there is. That is a significant drop. Set it there. Right, with the bottom bolt in the eyelet, you can see by how much these are shorter, and that's without any sag whatsoever on the weight of them. So let's just lower the bike down to come into line with the eyelet. All right, torque them up. All right, drop it off the jack for the moment of truth. That's it. Now with the weight of the bike on it, we are exactly 300 mil. And the left one, exactly the same. 300 mil. Right, now when you've changed the suspension on your bike, any suspension on any bike, it doesn't matter what it is, you've changed two fundamental things. The ride height alters the lean angle. Where your favourite bend, where you dive into your favourite lean angle, that's going to be reduced. You're not going to be able to push it over so far in the future. Something's going to possibly ground out. So very carefully go into your favourite bend on a nice dry day. Make sure you know where you used to be able to get to. You might not be able to lean over that far in the future. So check that. Make sure you're not going to end up grounding and crunching bodywork and undercarriage on the ground, because that's unsafe. The other side of it is your tyre. You've lowered the fender down over the tyre. There could be fasteners and fixings poking out under there that can catch the tyre on full pothole bumps. So go over a few potholes deliberately. Pick some of them speed ramps, get over them with a little bit of gusto, give it a bit of a bump, and then have a look at the surface of the tyre. See if any new lines appear in the surface that you've actually touched it, and you've then got to deal with whatever that obstruction is hanging down that's now going to touch your tyre. All of that is to make sure that the reduction in ride height that you've made is completely safe. So with all that done, talked up nicely, I've got to go for that test ride now, so let's put the luggage boxes back on and see how it feels. There, what a discovery. If you've got a Milwaukee 8 Touring, then the suspension from it, if you've got the standard height, is interchangeable with any of those that have the low suspension, and it's written on them what they are, so it's not hard to identify them. And you can probably get them from somebody secondhand online who's selling them because he's put some nice posh suspension on his Street Glide and he wants to sell the old ones off. You shouldn't be paying much money for them because they're not very sophisticated, they're not very adjustable, but they are a simple fix and they will get your bike lowered by an inch if that's all you need. Who knew? Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Take it easy, ride safe. We'll see you next time. Right, good morning. Welcome back. Now, you might remember this beautiful Electra Glide from back in the summer. We had it in for about 4 videos, I think. We did the rear wheel bearings, front and rear brake pads, changed the oil and filter, and put that magnetic dipstick in. And I think at the same time, that was it. That was it. Cut.